Hello, Mia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All righty, we're going to call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Jeff, you here?
I am.
I as well. Public comment? Anyone looking to make a public comment here today? This time members of the public can talk about something not on the agenda. Okay, no one's here for that. We need to approve our minutes from February 3rd committee meeting.
So approved.
Okay, I agree. Roll call, yay, yay. New business. Federal legislative update, Mia O'Connell, online. Hello, Mia.
Good morning. How are you?
Great.
Good. Thank you for the time. I want to follow up on the good meetings that we had in Washington in mid-March. First item of business there is the fiscal year 2026 work plan from the Corps of Engineers, which you recall was supposed to be released on March 24th. It was not released. It is still not released. Big surprise, the Corps is a little behind schedule. I have been told in talking to ASA's office that they expect it to be coming out this month. So you'll recall that's where we are seeking the 3.1 million in fiscal year 2026 funds to complete the Copper Cove project. We've got a request in there. Our senators have asked for support of that. Congressman McClintock has talked personally to ASA Tell on it, asking for his support. So we will see as that develops, but just to be cautious, we also put that request in, as you remember, in the fiscal year 2027 appropriations process, which is now underway. We've submitted our request for those funds to our senators. They have sent that request on. The committee is reviewing all of those requests. I don't expect we're going to hear a whole bunch on the 27 appropriations process for a while yet. Congress still has to determine, the top line figures and then figure out how much each subcommittee gets, that kind of thing. But we've submitted our request for the funding and we see how that develops. At the same time, we also have the 2026 Water Resources Development Act process underway. And of course, that's the Corps of Engineers authorization bill. And we've got a request in there to increase our Calaveras County authorization under Section 219, which is environmental restoration, which is where we've been getting our authority to conduct the Copper Cove project. We're looking to increase that authority to allow us to proceed with the Corps to do the New Hogan Reservoir raw water intake and transmission pipeline project that we submitted through the authorization process, again through our senators, and also Congressman Garamendi was kind enough to submit that for us. As you know, Congressman McClintock is not supportive of earmarks. He considers the authorization process also an earmark. So we have asked for his support while his colleague submits for us to support that request through the process. Here too, it's kind of in the committee's hands. All the requests have been put in on both the House and the Senate sides, and we're waiting for kind of the first heads up from the committees on a draft piece of legislation. I don't, WRDA is not like the appropriations process where they have to move ahead on an annual basis. We do this one every 2 years, and the scheduling is such that I don't expect to see anything for the next couple of months. and we'll see how that proceeds. WRDA has been, Congress has been very successful over the last number of years in getting a WRDA bill through, so I expect they will. It's just a matter of timing as the session continues. Talking about the authorization and Copper Cove, you'll recall that when we were with the Assistant Secretary of the Army's office and we were talking about the recent streamlining proposals that ASA TEL had submitted to the Corps, we indicated that we were very supportive of the Corps streamlining efforts that ASA TEL laid out in a couple of the areas, in particular, kind of the accountability and the cost effectiveness part of the direction to the Corps. And along those lines, we pointed out that, we were recently surprised by the Corps district coming back and saying, oh, we actually need a couple million more for this project that we've already, signed all the paperwork for, and we need to move that over to project management for the Corps and bring that number up. And that's kind of going in the opposite direction of cost effectiveness and accountability. And Michael took some time to flesh that out in a note to ASA's office. And also the other concept that we really liked in the streamlining proposal is the idea that if a sponsor is capable and can handle it, ASA TEL very much wants those sponsors to step forward and actually do the construction work for the Corps, because the Corps has got more work than it can handle, as we know. And so along those lines, we had a couple of conversations that were pretty positive about this Section 219 program that we have an authorization for. And there's been kind of a different view from when we first started, where we were told that the sponsor, it's a program where the sponsor goes ahead and constructs for the Corps and then gets reimbursed as they go. That was turned around based on an interpretation. So in ASA's office, we talked about that actually there was this other authority besides the one that ASA had mentioned in his directives that appeared to be just kind of an internal decision-making about who should take the lead for these kinds of projects. And we suggested that this might be one where ASA wants to step in and say, hey, actually, we do want the sponsors to move forward. So Michael highlighted that in his note. I'm following up at ASA's office to see if we can get some flexibility to put us in the driver's seat for Copper Cove and also for our next project at New Hogan. So that conversation is open and alive. And, I like the direction that ASA is going in, realizing, we've got to get more business-like kind of approaches into the Corps system to move it along. So we're kind of taking advantage of that and pointing out opportunities for them that would actually help us quite a bit. So that's in play as well right now. We also, as you recall, during our visits, talked to the congressional offices about the FERC legislative reform proposals that we had for their relicensing process, and we had fleshed out a couple of legislative concepts and submitted them to McClintock's office. I have been following up with that office and had put together a note for the congressman to send directly to the House Energy and Commerce Committee chair, who has jurisdiction over FERC and is looking to develop legislation along FERC reform and energy reform generally. McClintock's office has sent our concepts over. They've asked committee staff to include those in any proposals they're doing. So that is also in play. We don't have a timetable there, but McClintock's office is staying close to that action, and I'm staying close to McClintock's office to make sure that we're in the mix for that. In our visits, as you remember, with Senator Padilla's office. They got very interested in that and asked for some legislative language, which we were going to have our FERC council put together for us, fleshing out those concepts. And we need Michael to make sure we can get something back to Padilla's office, and I'll probably share with the rest of the offices too, so they have our legislative language. That's a follow-up that we need to stay on top of while Congress is still kind of hot to trot on energy issues and streamlining processes. Another follow-up item is we had discussed a meeting with Congressman McClintock. We had a meeting with staff, but I know you guys wanted to step it up. We've put in a request for that. The House and the Senate are in a prolonged recess right now, and the congressman is back, and we're working with his office, and we've got some dates for actually a visit by you guys to the congressman in his district office. So we're looking at some April dates right now. I know I've shared them with Michael, and hopefully we can come up with something. They really put a lot of meetings on his schedules when he's out there. So we're trying to, plug in for middle or late of April. So we've got a couple dates and times. Hopefully we can make that work, and we'll have a follow-up meeting directly with the congressman. That's where things stand right now. Questions?
Okay, thank you, Mia. I think we just talked about before we came, started the meeting on April 24th. Michael,
Okay.
that's the date we'll work with you and Director Davidson. I won't be able to be there, but we do have a reserve or alternate. We will try and make that one work.
Okay, super. Great. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Anything further on?
Just Mia, we sent that note to Stacy a couple weeks ago. Do you think it's worth pinging her again and just, we kind of offered ourselves up a little bit as a case study for how inefficient the Section 219
Right.
program is.
Right.
And
I was
so I just
gonna
want to make sure
follow up. Yeah, because she's got a few things going on, as you can imagine, with the work plan still not out yet. She's heavily involved in that. But I think it's worthwhile because I was going to check in with her on the work plan anyway. So I can follow up to see what else she might need on this, and to give us, also some further direction on the 219 concept of us proceeding forward, and had they talked about that and just kind of refresh that for.
because we haven't heard anything from the project management team on the 2
Yeah.
million.
Yeah.
And so, but I also don't want to, I don't want to bother
Right.
too much.
Yeah, no, I think it's timely, and it's also, gives me a reason to kind of check in on the work plan generally. I heard from her staff that it will be coming out this month, so it'd be nice to understand what's happening there, and in the same conversation, see what else she may need on
Okay.
the items that we brought up to her.
Let me know if you need anything from me on that.
Super, thank you.
Great recap, Mia. Yeah, we did have very positive meetings in DC last month, and thank you for following up on the items that we needed to. And if there's nothing further, we're going to move on to item 4B, and we're going to hear from our Aqua Legal Affairs Committee Chair. I'm going to ask
Mia,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mia.
My pleasure. Good seeing everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night.
I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. I'll butcher your name. I know I've seen it in writing. I haven't pronounced it yet. So go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, no problem, and thank you for having me. My name is Lutfi Karoof. I'm a partner with Best and Krieger, and I also am the chair of the Legal Affairs Committee for Aqua. I wanted to provide a brief update on Aqua-sponsored legislation. It's AB 2180. And this is legislation that's being authored by Assemblymember Christopher Ward. And its intent is to provide some clarification on how public agencies can set rates under Proposition 218 with a particular focus on water rates and tiered rates. By way of background, there have been a lot of cases that have talked about tiered rates in California, but they've reached different results. So there is a bit of a conflict in the law, and it provides a lot of uncertainty to public agencies when they're trying to figure out how to set tiered water rates in compliance with the Constitution. So the purpose of AB 2180 is to take the most recent Court of Appeal decision, which is in Dreyer versus the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and to codify that into a statute that provides some guidance to public agencies. So what AB 2180 does, it does a few things. It brings sort of the standard of review, standard of evidence that's required back to a bit of a reasonableness standard. So it says, hey, if you have evidence that demonstrates a reasonable cost of providing service, then that should be sufficient under Proposition 218. With respect to tiered rates in particular, it says that public agencies have discretion to look at many types of incremental costs, including the cost of infrastructure that's designed to serve larger water users, which we often see conveyed in the concept of peaking. You can also use sources of supply, even if those sources are commingled. So if you get water from multiple sources and they have different prices, this statute makes clear that you can use those different costs to justify tiered rates. It also talks about the cost of implementing conservation programs and says that you can take those costs and use them to justify your rates. And finally, it says that when you're setting tiered rates, if you want to set your tier breakpoints, which is the point at which you get into the next tier for price, you have discretion to set them at any place you wish to, basically for any purpose that you'd like to, so long as you still justify the cost of service within each tier. So let's say, for example, you want to tie your tiers to efficiency standards. The statute makes clear, if it's adopted, that you can do that, but you just have to calculate what it costs to provide water service within that tier. As of right now, it was referred to local government committee and passed out of the Assembly Local Government Committee with a 6-2 vote. So next it'll go through, the houses and the Senate Local Government Committee as well. So still a few steps to go, but so far things are pretty positive. The one thing I would mention on top of that is the case that the statute is based on is actually going to be going to the Supreme Court. That was granted review a few months ago, and briefing should be commencing within the next month or two. So we may have clarity from the Supreme Court as well, but in the meantime, the statute will provide important guidance for public agencies as well as to the court itself. So that's kind of the long and short of the statute. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on it.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Has the Aqua State Ledge Committee, is this on their radar? And what is their position if so?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they are very much involved. They were involved in looking at the language to ensure that this would be promoting Aqua's goals. It was actually, the language was kind of crafted through a team of attorneys, myself included, on the Legal Affairs Committee. And so we worked closely with Legal Affairs and with State Ledge to make sure that this was fully vetted before Aqua would be willing to sponsor it.
Awesome.
And we have signed on to the Aqua Coalition letter supporting this. So yeah, really appreciate the update, Lutfi, and the good work you guys have done on this. I think that it would all be welcome changes. Is it too early to give a prediction on how you feel it's going or the outcome you anticipate? Are you getting lots of requests for amendments or?
We're getting some requests for amendments, but nothing too significant. Things are looking generally pretty positive. The one thing that's important to note is that Proposition 218 is in the Constitution, and we can't amend the Constitution without a vote of the people. So while we can have the statutory guidance and the legislature has the sort of the right to interpret the Constitution, the main challenge that I would see with this is if a court down the road determines that it's in conflict with the Constitution. So that's kind of more of what the issue would be with the statute. But we don't foresee that as an issue because we really did craft this language based on the most recent case law.
Awesome. Any other questions for Lutfi? Nope. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning and
Sure.
the update.
Anytime. Very happy
Right.
to do it.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to item 4C. I can pronounce Kylie's name. Kylie Wright from Aqua State Relations Advocate is going to talk to us about SB 1153. Good morning, Kylie.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Providing you all an update on Aqua's sponsored bill, SB 1153 by Senator Caballero. We're sponsoring this bill this year with the goal of providing clarity of the role of water systems, specifically during a wildfire, and the limitations of our systems. And this language was drafted by a working group consisting of Aqua Legal Affairs Committee members and Aqua State Legislative Committee members. And we kind of started this process of discussing language about a year ago. This language kind of strikes a balance between, what our systems can do and what they can't do. In the legislature last year, we were seeing a lot of interest kind of in this space and a lot of focus on water systems regarding our capabilities when it comes to wildfire, specifically after the wildfires in LA last year. And so Aqua wanted to be proactive in this space and come forward with a proposal that we, thought was reasonable and provided some liability protections for our member agencies. So this bill has findings and declarations that kind of set up that narrative to correct some of the misinformation we were hearing last year. And in those findings and declarations, we acknowledge that our systems are designed for the delivery of safe and clean drinking water and to meet certain standards and codes for structure fires, but that they are not intentionally designed for those large wildfires. And the bill's provisions would specifically establish that water supply or pressure limitations during a wildfire are not a substantial cause of wildfire damages, and that the spread of a wildfire is not an inherent risk of water system design. So that language is intended to help guide the courts if cases are to come. And then the bill, this is kind of the balance part of what we are able to do. The bill would also require urban retail water suppliers in high-risk areas to have wildfire-specific plans incorporated within their existing federally required emergency response plans. And these plans would be required to include mitigation actions, specifically actions to prepare for a wildfire, respond to a wildfire, and to recover from a wildfire. But the specifics of, what those actions are and what's incorporated within those plans would be determined by the agency. And this is to account for, the differences across California and the different needs of each system. And also, geographic location and all of that. This bill has passed out of the Senate Emergency Management Committee, and it received 8 yes votes and 0 no votes. And the bill will be heard next on Tuesday next week in the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee. We've had around 60 organizations in support of this bill, and we have not received any opposition. Again, this bill is kind of balancing, what, our agencies can do and our limitations in that kind of liability protection. So it is a bill that we are treating very sensitively and having great conversations in the legislature on. So we will continue to do that as the bill moves forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. This seems like just a common sense response to what we heard during that LA wildfire. And my question is, with the requirements for emergency preparedness and plans, have we heard, you said there was no pushback from organizations, but are there water districts out there finding that a tough hurdle? Have you heard anything about that, or is it everyone's in full support of this in the water business?
Yeah, I've heard broad support for this bill from the water industry. The language is crafted to use that existing planning structure to help reduce the administrative burden on agencies, and leaving the specifics of the plan up to the agency allows for kind of the differences across California. I think we have concerns when there's statewide standards that might not work for each system. And so this bill is kind of in a happy medium, to where there's some flexibility for systems to meet the needs of their individual agency. And there's a date of January 1st, 2028 for compliance. And so if this bill is to pass into law, they would have a year to get those plans into place.
Michael, you want to ask that same question about its chances of survival? And
Well, I was just going to point out, this is a similar circumstance to Prop 218, where this is, well, it might seem like common sense. It's a difficult legal issue because you're trying to dance around what are constitutional issues. And so you can't just pass a bill that says that water agencies won't have any liability, because that would require a constitutional amendment. But what this does is help try to create some rules and some parameters to kind of constrain that what that liability, when it would come into effect and what it would be. So I think really smart approach to this, and in a perfect world we'd get the constitutional amendment removing that liability entirely, but that's probably a non-starter. So I know Elizabeth Leeper at EIDs has kind of led that work group, and Kylie's done a great job on it. So I'm hoping it moves through, but it is a controversial topic, I guess, not necessarily in the water industry, but there are other, there's legislators on the other that are trying to create more liability for water agencies at the same time. So so I don't know, Kylie, if you have a crystal ball yet on where you see this going.
Yeah, hopefully, this bill will continue to receive support in the legislature. I think the challenge with this bill is just maintaining that careful balance, and trying to prevent, unreasonable standards being placed on agencies. So that's kind of, what we're playing with right now, but hoping for the success of the bill.
Yeah.
I just worry about the urban legislators dictating something that doesn't occur in their neighborhood. I think it might have a tough time. Happens all the time. They create rules that they don't have to worry about complying with, and we're stuck with it. So let's hope.
well, thank you, Kylie.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time, Kylie. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the
Yeah,
report.
thank you all.
Have a good day.
And thank you, Kelly, for getting us some great speakers this morning. Appreciate you. This is our legal affairs group meetings are looking different than they have in the past. Appreciate your work on that. And you're going to take 4Ds, state ledge and regulatory updates?
I think I'm going to tag team this one with Mr. Minkler here.
Okay.
But one thing she didn't mention too is, like you were saying, the opposition to the different bills is, AB 2013 is kind of the opposite of that. It puts a lot more of the requirements on the water agencies. So that's one bill that Aqua is urging to oppose unless amended. I mean, I can go over some of the amendments they're suggesting, but basically it's just, we'd still be required to have that plan, but AB 2013 is a lot more extensive with water levels and tanks, an inventory of all of our pipelines, all the generators, fuel levels. I mean, it's a little bit overbearing, and that's, I think, what 1153 is trying to find, that happy medium and that medium balance, You guys will see in the packet, we did have those two support letters, and for the two bills that were just discussed, I did have fact sheets, so if you guys want to look over those. And then I put all the Aqua and Mountain Counties bills of interest right now. It's quite a few pages there. One thing I wanted to ask of you is, or of the committee, is there any bills in there that you guys are particularly, interested in? If any letters of support come our way, is there anything that sticks out in that packet that you want us to bring back to the full board? Quite a bit in there.
No, there is, and I haven't picked anything out that I want to see the whole board. And it's good to see our logo and the support of programs that do help us. And I'd like to see more of that where we can add a little bit of support. But no, I haven't picked anything out of the packet.
So did you have more? I have a few you want to highlight.
No, just if you could, though, take a look at that AB 2013. Again, Aqua and I think Mountain Counties as well is urging to oppose unless amended. So take a look at that and give us your thoughts.
And does that have strong support in the water business? Or
Not in the water business.
No.
It goes way too far. This is the one out of Ventura.
Yeah,
Right.
Bennett.
Yeah, so but they do face wildfire there, in fact, including the LA wildfires last year. But I think this is just a really unfortunate overreach, and they actually implemented something that was like specific to Ventura County, similar to this bill last year, and with it wasn't a secret that they were going to try to make it statewide this year, and it really just kind of micromanages water systems, and I think has that. The underlying problem is probably just that misunderstanding of what these systems are even designed to do and are capable of doing, and trying to turn these water systems into systems that could fight wildfire, which they were never designed to do. So I think there are a lot of problems with that bill. Hopefully the opposition is strong enough and that we get support for the Aqua sponsored bill.
what are other ones that stand out to you that?
Well, definitely those three. That's why I wanted to bring them. I think there's a lot of activity around those at the moment. There's quite a few, and I'm sure we'll go over some of the ones at Mountain Counties too. There's a lot of overlap there, but those are the three that really caught my eye.
Okay. And in your scene, I didn't look through it that closely, but is Mountain Counties pretty much aligned with Aqua, or have you noticed any of these bills where they're on opposite sides of issues?
It seems that quite a bit are aligned, especially in the forest management and the fuel sending projects and stuff like that. Same thing with CSDA. I was going to add CSDA's positions in there, but the packet would have just been a little bit too big, I think, a little
Right.
overload. But there's a lot of overlap, definitely. Again, with that 1153, Aqua and Mountain Counties completely agree with the outcome
Okay.
or the potential outcome.
Good to see. Anything further in your?
Couple of
report?
other bills, if it's good, that I would like to highlight that aren't in the packets because they're still evolving. We had a special meeting of the State Legislative Committee yesterday to take up a couple of bills that hadn't come before the committee yet, and then one that had been tabled from our last meeting because it had only been recently introduced. So 22, let's say I'll start with 2026. AB 2026 is a groundwater recharge bill, and this is, we see it pretty much every year for 10 years now. Agencies that are upstream of the Delta trying to modernize the state's regulatory system to allow us to take flood water and divert it, and when the Delta is in certain conditions of flood, to allow us to divert flood water and use it for groundwater recharge. And it's always been a controversial subject because the Delta and downstream users are always concerned that we'll take away from their sources or their ability to export from the Delta. So this bill gets into excruciating detail about the Delta conditions that have to exist in order for flood recharge to be allowed upstream, and then the type of permit that you have to get. So there's still a lot of regulatory compliance that will have to happen, but it will at least pave the way for facilitating more groundwater recharge with flood water. So there, fortunately, though there are still some agencies opposed to it. Aqua took a support position yesterday, and I think there's broad support for it. And I think probably the biggest proponent of it is Regional Water Authority in Sacramento, which includes some Mountain County's water agency members. And they're, I think, really trying to work with the water agencies that are concerned about it to address those concerns and hopefully get even broader support for it. But I think from CCWD's perspective, AB 2026 would be a very good thing. And then AB 2215, I think it is a controversial bill, and it will continue to be because so far the state ledge committee at Aqua has punted twice on it, which is unusual. So this is a bill that is brought by the state water project contractors, so Delta Exporters and DWR. And it would essentially, DWR has to have water rights, just like we have to have water rights to divert and use water. And their water rights for the state water project that serve 22 million Californians and ag in the Central Valley. Those water rights they're required to prove out their beneficial use of those water rights, just like we are. We're going through that process right now. And what they're seeking is, so they're up for, I think they filed an extension petition for those water rights to allow more time for them to prove maximum beneficial use. And what they're seeking in this bill is a statutory extension to 2085. And so basically taking them off the hook to prove their max beneficial use until 2085, not having to go through the process that all the rest of us have to go through. And so there are definitely some concerns with them, not only just from kind of a fairness standpoint, if all the rest of us have to go through that process, but it's not necessarily just that. It's really what might come from the process. I mean, you imagine, even our non-controversial water rights, we're just trying to go through this process with our power rights, which we put right back in the river. So we're not even, the one we're doing right now has no consumptive use. It doesn't affect downstream users, and we have people protesting it. And it's before the water board right now. So imagine DWR going through that process for Delta for Delta exports. There's going to be a massive amount of attention directed to it and a huge environmental review process that's going to require them to mitigate impacts. That if they skip that process, if they don't do that, then those mitigations might fall on other agencies like us who are going through that process, upstream of the Delta. So there's some significant concerns with it, and definitely one that we want to watch closely. So that's AB 2215. And then the other item that came up yesterday, and if you recall several months ago, we had Larry McKinney, when he was still at Amador, came to one of these meetings and talked about a low-income ratepayer assistance proposal that Region 3, led by Larry, but we all supported Larry's effort there, and we all worked together on it. And it actually, took concepts. This is another one that has been floated every year for the last 10 years. The Region 3 proposal took basically, where it left off in the legislative process last year, but then added funding to it and said it's, we've kicked around different ideas that nobody liked for ways to fund low-income ratepayer assistance. We didn't like the water tax. We fought like hell against that. We didn't, there's other funding mechanisms that we didn't think worked. And I think Larry took a pretty common sense approach and said, ultimately, this is going to have to be general fund that is going to fund this program. And nobody liked that either. So Aqua chose not to move that proposal forward this year. But what we're seeing now is an effort that is sponsored by some Aqua members, not Aqua itself. And it's two companion bills. So there's AB 2739, and then there's SB 1125. And it won't work if they don't, they both have to pass. one establishes a water affordability and they're calling it a water affordability and system stabilization trust. And so there's no budget appropriation attached to it. It just establishes the trust that in the future, if the state decides to put money in the trust, would be used for direct low-income ratepayer assistance. And the one thing I like about it is it also provides grant funding for infrastructure, which you guys have heard me on my soapbox say over and over again. You know, if you want to address affordability, give water agencies more money for infrastructure because that's what's driving rates up. But there's also a lot of support for direct assistance for low-income customers, which I'm not opposed to. I like what this bill does is both. So the trust, any money that goes into the trust, 45% of it would be used for direct low-income ratepayer assistance, 45% of it would be used for infrastructure grants.
Is there any discussion, any wording in the bill as to how the money would get into the trust and where it would come from?
No. So, yeah, so here we are again with another low-income ratepayer assistance bill that has no funding. It establishes the trust, but there's no money behind it. And so that's one of my concerns. But it also has some procedural problems, I think. And so the SB 1125 is sort of the policy companion bill. The Assembly bill establishes the trust. SB 1125 creates the policy. And that's where it requires water systems to establish this program where we would provide basically bill credit to low-income ratepayers. But there are a lot of questions about the timing and how this would actually work because it's essentially a reimbursement program. So we would have to set up the program. We'd have to set up the administrative and billing processes to implement this program, which is never as easy as it sounds, as we've learned repeatedly. And then we'd have to provide the bill credit. And then only if there's money in the trust would we be reimbursed for that bill credit. And then if there's no money in the trust, technically we don't have to provide the bill credit, but we may not know that until after the program is set up and we've already provided some of the money. So there are some timing issues here. There's some administrative burden that it puts on us because another possible outcome is we go through all that work to set up the program to implement this policy and no money ever gets funded and we've wasted that time for nothing. So, I moved for a support if amended position yesterday in the state legislative committee because of all those concerns, and that's the position that Aqua ended up taking on SB 1125. There's a support position for AB 2739, but support if amended on 1125. And there's, I know I've been rambling for too long now already, but there is one other bill, because this concept of a trust it's not the first time we've seen it in this legislative session. And I think it's the 872, I'll have to confirm the bill number. But it has a similar funding mechanism where there's no budget appropriation, but it establishes a trust that would be used for funding for canal repairs for the State Water Project, so subsidence in the Central Valley, and Delta levee repairs. And so when this came up a couple weeks ago in State Ledge, I raised some concerns about how much funding is going to go to those things, because Delta infrastructure is important for everybody, I think, but canal subsidence is one that, upstream of the Delta, we don't really directly benefit from that. And so if it's going to take a lot of infrastructure money away from other priorities and put it all into canal subsidence, which is an extremely expensive problem, when you have the state water contractors that have a lot of resources to potentially help address that problem, and they are, it's not all funded by this trust. It would be a funding share. But so there's now, with all of these bills passed, there would be these two new trusts that every year the different interested parties for each of those trusts would be advocating for budget allocations to go into those trusts. And if you're a state water contractor and you're primarily concerned about canal subsidence, you're going to fight for that trust. And if you're an upstream of the Delta Water Agency that has aging infrastructure issues, you're going to want money in the other trust. And then you're going to have to compete for that money because I'm sure those grants are going to be extremely competitive. And you may be competing against those same, state water contractors again. So interesting approach, these trusts, and it's interesting that we're seeing multiple iterations of this now in this legislative session. But so those some complex issues with Aqua members on both sides in some cases. And so really looking forward to talking to Justin about this batch of bills that I don't think Mountain County has taken positions on yet.
Interesting.
Keep a
Well,
close
thank you.
eye on all those.
Rambling's okay. We get a lot of information out of that. I'd like to this group to continue, this committee continue following those and see where they end up this session.
Yeah, those are, I think they're all important ones. There's, like I said, there's things I like about this approach to low-income ratepayer assistance and infrastructure funding, but I have a lot of concerns and a lot of questions at the same time. And I think it's something that, I hope is not just kind of, I don't know. There's some skepticism that I have about this approach and the fact that it's coming up at the same time as this other trust. So I hope it's not just an effort to appease the other interests within Aqua to get support for both for both trusts. And I'm going to resist the temptation to take a cynical view there until we get more into it.
I don't think I've heard in previous legislative sessions about forming trusts. Is this a new concept, or have they just failed in the past?
We have other trusts in the state, so it's not totally new, but to see two of them pop up, right over, back to back this session is definitely interesting. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's continue following that. Anything else, Kelly?
Today is CSDA's Ledge Days. I think today and tomorrow, at least today. So maybe next meeting we can report out. I can have somebody from CSDA report on that activity.
Okay.
Instead, I chose to be here with you guys.
Oh, well, thank you for showing up. And again, thank you for putting together some speakers for us, and a nice packet. A lot of information, a lot of bills that are in the water world right now.
Yeah, great job on this, Kelly.
Thanks.
Good stuff.
Anything further from you?
Nope.
Okay, we're going to go on to general manager's comments. Michael?
Well, you probably don't want me to steal your thunder about Mountain Counties this week, so I'll let you take.
That's the next item.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that'll be director's comments.
That's what I mean. I'll let you take that one. But I'm very much looking forward to having that group in town, and our ability to host them is a good opportunity for us. But outside of that, I'll just more follow up with Mia, because you guys were there. I think some really productive discussions with the Army Corps, and then on the FERC reform efforts. And I just want us to make sure we remain engaged in those discussions. And Mia's always good about that. So even if I, get distracted, she'll make sure to remind me. But no, lots of good stuff. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you, Michael. On director's comments, I'd go ahead, Director.
I have nothing to comment on.
Okay. Yeah, future agenda items, we did talk about that. I would like to follow up on a lot of these things that seems like kind of exciting, especially the two bills that Kylie and Lutfi talked about. I'd be interested to follow along with those, along with how these trusts work out. And good packet, good batch of a lot of stuff. Way too much to take a deep dive on most of that stuff. On MIA's stuff, on the federal stuff, is there anything, I mean, we did have some great discussions on the 219 process and how that, is that something that we can bring back to the local, I mean, they're asking for another $2 million to do to be a project manager and we're talking about as a sponsor to take over the project and do the work ourselves. We did a lot of discussions with everybody in DC. Did we come back home and is it our job to contact the local people and discuss that with them?
Good question, and Kevin was just on and he just dropped off, but that's fine.
He's avoiding that.
Yeah, no, I think he thought we were done. Great question. So that was a little bit of what I was alluding to with Mia, is that we haven't heard, I'm kind of hoping that in our next project management meeting with the SAC district office, they come back at us and say, hey, Secretary.
We got our ass chewed.
Secretary Tell slapped our wrist and here's your $2 million back.
Well, is that the way it comes? Do you think it's going to come from DC down to them?
That would be the best case scenario. That was why I was asking Mia, because I sent a long follow-up email to Stacy Brown with, just kind of making the argument again and giving her the information that she had asked for from us. And that's why I was asking Mia, do we prod again? Do we start
she
at the
said
local
yes.
level? Yeah, so I think Mia's going to send another email to Stacy because she's going to ask for an update on the work plan anyways. But to your question about the local, I don't think they're in a position to make that decision.
So it wouldn't behoove us to tell them what we heard in DC and what they're suggesting.
It's a really good
They won't
question.
be
I'll
able
talk
to
to
make the
Kevin
decision
about it,
anyway,
but
so.
because we have a good working relationship with it. As frustrated as we get with the Corps, and as good people, they're trying to help us get this project done, and we do have a good working relationship with them. And I give them a heads up. I tell them before we go to DC, I tell them, hey, just so you know, we're going to have these meetings with the higher ups, and you may hear about it, or so try not to take people by surprise. And so no, I don't think it would be. I don't think it'd be out of line for us to give them the update on those discussions. In fact, they'd probably appreciate it. I don't think they're going to make those changes, at this level.
I don't think we can.
So they're going to need to hear it from above. But I do think,
They're
they
following
probably,
orders, they're not.
but they would probably appreciate the heads up, so that if it
Okay.
does come down, yeah. So I appreciate the question, and I'll talk to Kevin about that.
All right, yeah, and definitely want, as far as future agenda items, that is our bread and butter. That is what, that is a lot of money we're looking at, and especially now that we put the Hogan raw water project in there too. And again, we don't want them running that or being as slow on that project as we've been on the Copper Cove. But okay.
Oh man, if we could bring that in, yeah. It's a good point. I don't want to make any bets about the timing on it, but we've learned a lot too. In addition to the Corps, the SAC district had never been through this process before. We had never been through this process before. And so I think, the learning experiences that we've had at Copper Cove will benefit us a lot at this point. And I think we'll definitely be able to get through it faster, hopefully.
Okay. All right, and the other item I have is obviously this week Mountain Counties Water Resource Association is having our a roundtable, first roundtable. This was first roundtable in at least 5 or 6 years that we put together. It's for general managers, high level leaders at water districts. It's going to be about dam safety. Starts at noon. Includes a lunch on Thursday at Murphy's Hotel. That evening we have a reception. Generally, that reception would be outside, but I think I see some bad weather coming our way, and I don't think it's going to spare Murphy's. But so Thursday night, I'm not quite sure where the reception is going to be. It'd be great if it was outside this time of year.
Covered. There's covered outside at the hotel, isn't there? We still do it outside, maybe. Oh.
Yeah, and I haven't heard, but it may be upstairs in that big room, and I'm not even sure where the round table is going to be. I don't know if either of you guys have heard.
I think it's upstairs at the
Upstairs?
hotel. Yeah.
So everything may be up in that room. And one of the things we're going to be, and then we have our meeting the following morning, I think 9 a.m. It's going to be at UPUD, a couple blocks down the road. We'll have our meeting there, and all are welcome. One of the things we're really going to be touting at that meeting is the Urban Water Institute Conference, August 19th, 20th, and 21st. Going to include a cruise, a dinner cruise on the bay, where actually the conference is going to take place in Coronado Island. Going to be beautiful, and we're really touting it up. This is Mountain. We need Mountain County to be well represented, and I really would appreciate if at least you two guys could sign up for that. It happens to be Michael's birthday on the night of the dinner cruise, so we're gonna 19, 20, and 21st.
Don't pretend like you don't know my birthday. That's not good, Kelly. Come on.
What is this for?
This is the Urban Water Institute Conference, and we're putting it together with California United, which is the group that John Kingsbury started 10, 15 years ago. And now it's finally come to fruition. It's east to west. It includes Oshawa from the Bay Area group, Water Group, Mesa Water District. California United is made up of, Michael and I were having this discussion yesterday. It is 4 groups. It's Mountain Counties Water Resource Association, Oshawa, Urban Water Institute, and Mesa Water District, huge water district from Southern California. That makes up California United. That's who is putting on this conference along with Urban Water Institute. They're sharing host of this with mountain counties, and this is our opportunity to highlight this north, south, east, west coalition that we've put together, and now there's going to be hundreds of people there, and we're really trying to bring the mountain county.
There is some value in interacting with those urban agencies. To let them understand what
They're understanding where their water comes from. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the key.
and also some, like I was just talking about, some of the legislation that affects us that we can't comply with, that they think is automatic. It's important to have that relationship.
And they're opening up their. I mean, hopefully it's who's taking care of the watershed, who's taking care of where your water comes from. That's what it's all about, and getting that message to the Bay Area and get more of them involved and understanding that. And that's what this whole conference is going to be focused on, that. And if we can have, we're really looking, and I'm going to be touting this at our meeting on Mountain Counties, that I'm going to ask all of our directors to be there. I'm the only director from Mountain County that's ever gone, and I've only been to one before. Which was last year. We're going to be asking everybody to go. I'd love to see our board there.
When is it?
August 19th, 20th, and 21st. I think you can even fly down on the 19th. It starts at noon, I'm pretty sure, on that day, on Wednesday. Thursday goes all day long, and then we have the dinner boat cruise in the bay that evening, and then the following day on the 21st, I think it goes for another half day. I think it's 2 full days, a half day on Thursday, or a half day on Wednesday, full day Thursday, half day on Friday, and then you fly home Friday.
San Diego.
In San Diego, yeah. And the speakers we had last year, I just couldn't believe. Actually, we poached Mountain Counties. We poached two of their speakers for our big fall conference up here in Northern California, and one of them was the fire reporting company. What's that? The app on your phone? Yeah,
Watch Duty.
And it was. I mean, that's where they did their presentation and where they're going and how much further they're going to do and getting into, a lot of other emergency stuff besides. It's not just fire. And actually, they pointed it out. It's called Watch Duty, not Fire Duty, for a reason. There's earthquakes and a lot of other things that are going to become part of their reporting out, and they are partnered with. From here to the Mississippi River, they have, I don't know how many people, a well-respected group. But anyway, they had the conference has a lot of innovative stuff in the way they do things. It's well attended and a well-respected group. But If we can get a lot, really looking for a lot of people from the mountain counties and to support Mountain Counties Water Resource Association to be there. And many people from staff here at CCWD would be greatly appreciated if we could make a showing. Again, August 19th, 20th, and 21st. We'll be talking a lot about that on Friday morning later on this week. Our next meeting, Tuesday, June 2nd, here at 1 o'clock. And if there's nothing further, we're adjourned.
Michael?